Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jill, otherwise known as the Enlightened Target, and this channel is devoted to narcissistic abuse awareness and recovery, parental alienation, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and anything and everything associated with those three main topics. Today we're talking about parental alienation and specifically the three categories or levels of parents who alienate and what that looks like and what that means for the targeted parent and the child. All parental alienators are not created equal. And if you are going through this or you have suspicions that your ex might be participating in alienating behaviors, then it's incredibly important that you determine what level your ex is, because time is critical in severe cases. Parental alienation describes a process through which a child becomes estranged from a parent as a result of the psychological manipulation and abuse, both overt and covert, of the other parent. Alienating parents use many different tactics in order to get the child to reject the other parent, including bad-mouthing and name-calling. That's very, very common. Sharing inappropriate information with the child, withholding love and affection if the child responds lovingly or in a positive manner towards the parent, punishment for expressing love for the other parent, rewarding the child for rejecting the other parent, and so many other pathologically enmeshing behaviors. I categorize the parent who is manipulating the child as the alienating parent and the other parent as the target parent. The alienating parent is actively participating in behaviors that result in the child rejecting, disrespecting, and fearing the targeted parent. This behavior in the child is almost exclusively seen in situations where there is a divorce or a custody battle in family court between the two parents. Richard Gardner is the first psychiatrist to have identified these specific behaviors that a child exhibits who is being alienated way back in the 1980s. And what I'm going to be explaining today is based on his model. And just so everyone knows, I have lived through the extremes of parental alienation, and I have studied every model known to man, as well as have personally worked with or spoken to every parental alienation subspecialist that I could find on this continent and in Europe. And I personally find Gardner's research and Childress's research accurate. Every behavioral display that they both use as a diagnostic criteria were present in my circumstances. So I'm not going to get into the debate as to which model should be used to diagnose. I'm not a psychiatrist. The only thing I'm interested in is giving parents as much advice and information about what this is, how to identify it, what it means, and hopefully, God willing, ways to solve it. I will not ever do a video explaining an issue as important as this if I do not believe it's valid and could help someone. This information is important if you are realizing that your child is exhibiting behaviors that are not typical and you're concerned that your ex may be doing this to your child. It will help you understand if your ex is someone who can be educated and therefore will stop, or if you are dealing with someone who has a personality disorder. So today I'm using Gardner's research to explain the different categories of alienating parents. It's important to understand that divorces and custody battles and family court is not a pleasant experience for most people who are going through this. So there is usually some bad-mouthing that each parent is participating in front of the children, unfortunately. So there is usually an element of alienating behaviors in both parents going through this. And that is why it's so important that people are educated, because all alienators are not created equal. Richard Gardner defined alienating parents into three categories. 1, naive alienators. 2, active alienators, and 3 obsessed alienators. And there are extreme differences between a naive alienator and an obsessed alienator. So let's define what a naive alienator is and some of the behaviors that are common with a parent in this category. Most divorced parents will be in this category or have moments of being in this category. These parents mean well, and they recognize the importance of having the child have a healthy relationship with the other parent. They will rarely have to return to court because of problems with visits or other issues relating to the child. They will encourage the relationship between the child and the other parent, and that parent's family. They may occasionally say things to the child like, why don't you ask your father for the new pair of shoes? He has way more money than I do. Or why can't you get your mom to take you to the pizza party? I have to work such long hours and she has more free time than I do. Communication between both parents is usually good. They will have their disagreements, much like before the divorce, but for the most part, they can work out their differences without bringing the children into it or going back to court. The child will not typically be damaged by what they see and hear from their parents, and will trust and love both parents. They will trust their parents to love and protect them. Everyone has distinct personalities, beliefs, and feelings. Neither is threatened by how the other feels towards the targeted parent. Characteristics of a naive alienator are: the parent is able to separate their mind from the child's needs from their own. They recognize the importance for the child to spend time with the other parent. They feel secure with the child having a loving relationship with the other parent and their family, and they don't typically blame the other parent for their hurt and loss. They will respect the court orders. They are able to let their anger and hurt feelings not interfere with the child's relationship with the other parent. They are usually flexible and willing to work with the other parent. They will feel guilt when they acted in a hurtful way to the child's relationship with the other parent, and are able and willing to share the child's activities and school records with the other parent. Naive alienators usually won't need therapy, but it would be they would benefit from learning about parental alienation, because this insight that they'll gain educating these parents is usually beneficial, because it will prevent this behavior from ever escalating or stop it completely. These parents know that they make mistakes but care enough about the children to make things right. They focus on what is good for the children without regret, without blame, without martyrdom. The second type of alienating parent is called the active alienator. Most parents returning to court over problems with visitation are active alienators. These parents mean well, usually, and believe that the children should have a healthy relationship with the other parent. The problem that they have is controlling their frustration, bitterness, and hurt. When something happens to trigger their painful feelings, active alienators lash out in a way to cause or reinforce alienation against the targeted parent. However, after regaining control, the parent will usually feel guilty or bad about what they've said and back off from their alienating tactics. Typically, active alienators will go back and forth between impulsively alienating and repairing the damage with the child. These parents mean well and they love the child, but will occasionally lose control because of the intensity of their feelings, and their feelings overwhelm them at times. Characteristics of an active alienator are lashing out at the other parent in front of the children. Their problem has more to do with loss of self-control when they're upset than sinister motivations. After calming down, active alienators realize that they were wrong, and they usually will try and repair the damage or the hurt to the child. They are comforting and supportive of the child's feelings. Like naive alienators, active alienators allow the child to have different feelings and beliefs from their own. During flare-ups of anger, the beliefs of the parent and the child can become blurred, but when the parent has calmed down, they are able to distinguish between the two. Older children are usually not negatively affected by the beliefs of an active alienator. They are stable and confident in their beliefs about both parents and aren't easily influenced by the negative beliefs about the targeted parent. Younger children may have be more confused and vulnerable to their parents' manipulations, but again, an active alienating parent is not trying to destroy the relationship the child has with the other parent. Active alienators have the ability to respect the court orders and the court's authority, and for the most part will comply with court orders. They can be very rigid and uncooperative, but with the other parent, this usually will be a passive attempt to strike back at the other parent for some injustice. Active alienators are usually willing to accept professional help when their children have a problem that does not go away. They are sincerely concerned about their children's adjustment to the divorce. They might struggle at times with harboring old feelings, but they continue to hope and work towards a recovery for their pain. An active alienator will respond to therapy and becoming educated about their harm they're causing by their behaviors. They will be willing to stop participating in these behaviors because they love their child. Naive and active alienators most times do not understand how damaging it is for the child to be exposed to this and will be able to empathize with the child and regret their behavior. These alienating parents will respond to therapy and are capable of being educated and will be able to stop participating in these behaviors. The third type of alienating parent is the obsessed alienator. The obsessed alienator is a parent, sometimes a grandparent. In my personal circumstances, it was both a parent and a grandparent. But these alienators have a cause to align the child to his or her side and together campaign to destroy the relationship with the targeted parent. For the campaign to work, the alienating parent enmeshes the child's personalities and beliefs with their own. There will always be pathological enmeshment between the obsessed alienating parent and the child. This is a process that takes time, but one that the child is completely helpless to see or combat. The obsessed parent is angry, bitter, feels betrayed by the other parent. The initial reasons for the bitterness may actually be justified. Lots of bad things happen in a marriage and a divorce. And sometimes the bitterness is not justified in the least and is simply, the parent is simply angry and feels violated because of the divorce. The problem occurs when the feelings won't heal, but instead become more intense because of being forced to continue the relationship with the parent that they despise because of common parenthood. Just having to see or talk to the other parent is a reminder of the past and triggers their hate. They are unable to put the past behind them and to move forward and to co-parent for the sake of their child. They cannot distinguish the child's needs from their own. They are consumed with hatred for the targeted parent, and that hatred dictates their behavior. They are unable to see what is right and best for the child. They are on a mission to destroy all ties the targeted parent has with the child, and usually will desire to destroy everything in the targeted parent's life. Characteristics of an obsessed alienator are they are obsessed with destroying the child's relationship with the targeted parent. They have succeeded in enmeshing the child's personality and beliefs about the targeted parent with their own. The child believes that the beliefs that they hold about the targeted parent are indeed their own. The child will parrot the alienator. The child will use words and terminology and sentence patterns that are identical to the alienating parent. It's as if the alienating parent has invaded the child's body and mind and is literally speaking through the child. The child believes his or her words are their own. The child, has no idea that they have been subjected to very sophisticated manipulations and abuse tactics. The child is unable to distinguish their beliefs about the targeted parent that do not align with the alienating parent. The targeted parent, and often the child, sometimes cannot tell the reasons for their feelings. The alienating parent's beliefs sometimes become delusional and completely irrational. No one, especially the court, can convince the alienating parent that they are wrong. Anyone who tries to tell the parent that they're wrong becomes the enemy, including the child, and no one knows that more than the child. The court's authority does not intimidate these parents. There will be continual disregard for court orders, and there will be continual violations. They have no regard for the court orders, period. This parent has an unquenchable anger because they believe they have been victimized by the other parent. And whatever they do to protect the child is justified. This is a dangerous time for the targeted parent many times because this alienator will try and get the targeted parent arrested for abuse or other crimes that they are not guilty of. I personally had Child Protective Services called on me 6 times in 1 year. I was under 6 investigations in 2 different states. In my circumstances, the goal was to make my address become a prison, a cemetery, or a mental ward. So make no mistake, when you are dealing with an obsessed alienator, the goal is to destroy the targeted parent's life. Many times the obsessed alienator will manipulate the child into making false allegations of abuse, as well. So the obsessed alienator's goal is to publicly have the child disparage, vilify, and humiliate the targeted parent, publicly shouting to the world that the child chooses them, this wonderful savior parent. Many times the obsessed alienator will have a history of treating the child in an abusive or neglectful manner. Sometimes the obsessed alienator will have no real interest in the child until this battle. The child is many times desperate to obtain the love and affection of the alienating parent, and because of this, the alienating parent can easily manipulate and exploit the child's beliefs about the targeted parent by simply showing the child attention, affection, and love. They love bomb the child just like narcissists do in romantic relationships. So many times the child has never experienced this kind of affection from this parent, and they've been starving for it. However, once the court battle is over, or once they get what they want from the child, which is usually the complete destruction of the targeted parent, the obsessed alienator will disregard the child again. They will reject the child again. They will ignore the child again, neglecting the child just like they did before. The obsessed alienator's main interest in the child is to harm the targeted parent. This parent does not love the child. This parent is disturbed, abusive, dangerous, and has a very serious personality disorder. The obsessed alienator usually believes much of the lies that they say about the targeted parent. Many times they are delusional and unable to distinguish between what is true and what the beliefs that they created are from their delusion. Obsessed alienators will always suffer from a cluster B personality disorder. They will be a narcissist, a borderline, a sociopath, or all 3. Normal parents do not do this to their children. These parents are very disturbed and are not going to stop unless they are forced to stop. Children and targeted parents in these circumstances will require at least a 90-day enforced order of protection from the alienating parent and intervention from a qualified parental alienation subspecialist. You cannot get therapeutic intervention for a severely alienated child from just anyone. It takes a very specific educated professional. Many therapists claim to understand these dynamics and do not. I cannot stress this enough. You must only get treatment from a parental alienation subspecialist, and the 90-day enforced order of protection is a necessity. There is no other way to stop an obsessed alienator other than to force him or her to stop. The intervention and enforcement is a necessity with obsessed alienators, and punishment and sanctions must be swift and consistent from the court. The obsessed alienator usually will only respond to two main sanctions from the court: their freedom and lots of their money. Time is critical for the child and the targeted parent who are living through this. Time is critical. This can happen very, very fast. This is a severe form of child abuse. What this parent is doing to the child is an extreme form of child psychological and emotional abuse at the very least. And the child is in need of protection from this parent. This parent will not respond to therapy or becoming educated about the harm that they're causing the child. This parent is incapable of stopping and will have to be forced to stop. The targeted parent and child will not be able to recover without the active participation of the court. The court orders must be enforced by the court, and there must be a protective order for the targeted parent and the child. No communication between all alienating parents and grandparents and the child for a period of at least 90 days are required and must be enforced. Any violations must be immediately followed with severe sanctions, freedom, and lots of money. These parents will only respond to personally suffering negative consequences. They will not respond or be stopped because they're harming the child. Obsessed alienators will always suffer from a cluster B personality disorder. They will be a narcissist, a borderline, a sociopath, or all three. Normal parents do not do this to their children. These parents are very disturbed and are not going to stop unless they are forced to stop. Children and targeted parents in these circumstances will require at least a 90-day enforced order of protection from the alienating parent and intervention from a qualified parental alienation subspecialist. You cannot get therapeutic intervention for a severely alienated child from just anyone. It takes a very specific educated professional. Many therapists claim to understand these dynamics and do not. I cannot stress this enough. You must only get treatment from a parental alienation subspecialist, and the 90-day enforced